Episode 01, The Devil's Voice. A group of fishermen set out into open waters, their faces hardened by years of struggle against a sea that no longer gave as it once had. Fish had become scarce, painfully so, but their survival depended on that faint chance of the ocean's generosity. They had no choice but to keep trying. Among them was Code, the newest recruit, facing his very first day at sea. He had to endure not only the disappointment of hauling up nets empty of fish, but also the warning that a storm was rolling in fast. Soon, the boat began to pitch violently under the assault of raging waves, while the sharp, icy wind screamed outside. The men muttered to their captain Takada, urging him to turn back. With no fish caught and the storm worsening, continuing seemed reckless. Meanwhile, Code grew pale and sick, his stomach twisting. His comrades reassured him that seasickness was common and told him to lie down until it passed. Then, amid the roar of the storm, a new sound pierced through, louder than the thunder and more unsettling than the crashing waves. It was shrill, unrelenting, like a siren. Impossible, they thought. No such structure existed this far out at sea, yet the sound continued, drilling into their skulls. At first, it sparked curiosity, but as hours dragged on, the noise became unbearable, scraping against their nerves like rusted metal. Only Code, exhausted and ill, managed to sleep through it. By morning, the storm had vanished. Calm seas stretched in every direction, a deceptive blanket of tranquility. Code awoke to the shouts of excitement from his fellow fishermen. Confused, he stumbled toward them, expecting that they had finally decided to turn back to port. Instead, he saw them straining with the nets, their voices brimming with joy. One called to him for help, swearing this was their greatest catch in years. Code gripped the ropes and pulled, muscles burning. The others laughed in anticipation, waiting for silver bodies to spill onto the deck. But what the sea returned to them was not fish. A pale arm broke the surface first, limp and waterlogged. Code froze. Slowly, the rest of the body followed, a bloated, rotting corpse rising from the abyss. His stomach lurched in horror, and then he saw more. The net bulged with them, a cluster of human carcasses dragged up from the depths. He tried to scream, but his voice drowned under the shouts of his crewmates, who seemed blind to the horror. To them, the bodies looked like fish. They hauled harder, eager not to lose their prize. One by one, the corpses spilled onto the deck, slick with seawater and crawling with barnacles. Code trembled as he turned to Takada. "Do you not see? These are bodies." But the captain only blinked, as if shaking off a dream. Then, at last, his expression twisted. He shouted, warning the others, and suddenly, reality returned to them. Panic spread like wildfire. They asked each other why they had believed those rotting husks were fish. None had an answer. Shaking with fear, they tossed the bodies back into the sea. That night, still rattled, they swore to each other that no word of this would ever leave their lips. Yet Takada could not stop wondering, why had their eyes lied to them? And why, upon waking, had two of the men sworn they had seen the ocean stained red, as if with blood? Continues in part 02. The fishermen debated through the night, their voices low and tense. Some said the visions had been illusions, born of exhaustion and terror. But then Takada spoke, his face pale. He reminded them of the siren sound. Before anyone could respond, it came again. The noise ripped through the night air, sharper than any storm, vibrating in their bones. They screamed in unison, clamping their hands over their ears. The wail was deafening, as if the sea itself were shrieking. Takada, grim-faced, forced his voice over the roar. "This is no storm. It is the voice of a demon." He told them of old tales whispered among seafarers, stories of creatures that lured sailors with their cries, twisting their minds until they leapt willingly into the ocean. He ordered Code to keep his ears covered, but even muffled, the sound seemed to crawl beneath the skin, worming into their thoughts. Then the water began to stir, ripples spread like the twitch of some unseen beast. The men gasped, convinced fish had finally come to them. Code shouted, begging them not to be deceived, but they were already pulling at the nets again. He watched, heart hammering, as the ropes strained. For a moment, he prayed he was wrong, that this time it would truly be fish. But the nets rose heavy with the same horror as before. Dozens of bodies emerged, tangled and grotesque, their skin torn and bloated, their eye sockets crawling with sea life. The others cheered, seeing only fish. Code screamed their names, desperate to break the spell. They heaved together, dragging the mass of corpses onto the deck. And then, impossibly, the dead opened their eyes. Continues in part 03. The corpses moved. Barnacle-crusted hands clawed the deck, pulling themselves upright. Hollow eyes locked onto the living. The wail of the siren drowned out the fishermen's panicked cries, piercing so deeply that even their own voices felt distant. Reality snapped back too late. They realized they had not caught fish, but monsters risen from the depths. The dead surged forward as one. Cold, rotting arms wrapped around the living men, dragging them toward the edge. One by one, they were hurled screaming into the sea. Code ran, stumbling below deck, slamming the door shut behind him. His chest heaved as he pressed himself against it, listening to the pounding of fists, the cracking of glass. He caught one final glimpse through a shattered window. The corpses closing in, their eyes fixed on him. Then the door splintered. Hours later, another fishing vessel, unaware of the horror, cast its nets in the same waters. Feeling the weight of a catch, the crew hauled eagerly. But what they pulled from the depths froze their blood. It was not fish. It was the bodies of Code and the others. And as they stared in terror, the siren's wail rose again. Soon, to their eyes, those corpses would look like nothing more than fish. The sea had claimed them. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed it, leave your like and subscribe to the channel. Write in the comments which horror manga you'd like to see here, and come be part of this dark work with access to exclusive content. Become a member right now and help us create incredible stories together. We'll be waiting for you on the darkest side of manga stories.